So, what myths or misunderstandings about brain plasticity do you encounter most often, especially around the area of aging?
Starting off with neuroplasticity myths, one of the first would be that after a certain point from an injury, you can no longer expect to make any neuro based or neuroplastic based gains. So that's myth number one, that when I graduated from PT school was always bantered about 30 or 60 days after a stroke. So that's myth number one that has some relationship to age, but not as purely defined as age. It's just time since lesion. Myth number two, which comes straight at age, is that after a certain decade, persons can no longer expect to make new connections in the brain, whether that be from a function of learning new movements, concepts, etc., or in recovery because you're not going to be youthful enough to be able to proliferate connections. So those are the two main myths that center around neuroplasticity: too long since injury, too old to make improvements. And the third is the consideration that in well aging or healthy aging, that an individual, by a function of age, will lose connections. So that's a negative neuroplasticity. So if you don't use it, you will lose it, lose connections, purely as a function of the biology of aging.
So, you're saying there with the last one that the use it or lose it is a function of just simply function, not using the function as opposed to a function of age.
Exactly. And so we believe that normal aging should include what we call cortical atrophy, brain shrinking as a function of losing neurons and losing volume due to connections. And we're finding that that is being debunked actively and multidirectionally. We can make new connections at any age. And this was an accidental finding, Jeff, that occurred decades ago. Even the notion of neurogenesis was an accidental finding that we can talk a little bit more about, but they are definitively independent of aging.
That's fascinating because I think as an exercise scientist, we're always teaching basically that it's a matter of inactivity that causes us to lose muscle mass, not just and for years, this is one of the things that I've had to reteach myself and my students is that the decline in muscle mass is not inevitable if we keep working out and lifting. So now I'm hearing that the decline of the brain is not necessarily inevitable as most people assume. So what does the science actually tell us about the abilities to of the brain to adapt later in life?
Yeah, I'm going to tag right off of what you just said. So, decline in muscle mass, not age dependent, decline in cortical mass, not age dependent, just to bring that together. Now, let's talk about the science truly of neuroplasticity. It comes down to what I like to very simply explain as a demand and supply model.